Bournemouth in danger of breaching FFP. Recently there's been a lot in the media with regards to FFP and the teams that are being affected by it. Indeed, Everton have felt the full force of the Premier League already this season with a 10-point deduction for financial misdemeanours that took place in previous seasons. After this penalty, it's fair to say that top-flight clubs are now seriously scrutinising their spending more than ever before in order to ensure they stay compliant with the strict criteria set out. This season though, the Premier League has a new fast-tracked, streamlined profitability and sustainability process. What it means is that clubs have until December the 31st each year to submit accounts for the previously completed season. And only just a few days ago, it was announced that fresh charges may be incoming for the Toffees, but also Nottingham Forest too. Eek. The Premier League's aim was to apply the appropriate penalties to clubs in the same season that the accounts were submitted, rather than drag it on to future seasons, as happened with Everton last year. In the meantime though, football fans everywhere are still just pondering why the accusations levelled at Manchester City last, February, have still not come to any conclusion. Well, the fact is they relate to matters over a 9-year period, so there's a lot of investigation and examining that needs to be done, and the result is not expected for some time. So, what is FFP? Well, in England, all Premier League clubs have to comply with strict profit and sustainability regulations, which state that they cannot lose more than £105 million in a rolling 3-year window, with the threshold being smaller for clubs who were in the Championship during that time span. In Forest's case, they had a charge last week and they knew that the club would breach their FFP limit, but they felt that trying to get the best price for Brennan Johnson was in the spirit of the profit and sustainability regulation rules. I can feel their pain a little bit actually, as by holding out for a larger fee for Johnson, they've actually protected the future finances of their club far better than if they'd accepted a lower offer earlier in the window. However, spirit cannot be accounted for on a financial spreadsheet. So the Premier League subsequently applied the rules strictly and they were deemed to have gone over the threshold, and now their fate is in the balance. But where are Bournemouth at? Are we in danger of having any issues? Will we see any new transfers through the door in January? Will more players leave? And how do developments such as the training ground and the potential new stadium affect things going forward? Firstly, let's nip this in the bud. Clubs are allowed to spend money on infrastructure, and also that includes women's teams and academy costs, and that does not go towards their FFP figure. But didn't the Toffees get done over with that? Well, kind of. There was a bit of confusion with some of their spending came by the way of interest they were paying on the loans the club said were related to the new stadium, but the Premier League, they disputed this. Anywho, for Bournemouth, our new training facility at Canford Magna and any potential new stadium will not be affected by FFP. And good to know, because a new stadium we definitely need. So what contributes to our FFP figures? Well, it's all about your outgoings not being £105 million more than your incomings over a 3-year period. Is that right? I think it is. These are some of the incomings they take into account, you can see on screen, and these are the outgoings as well. Look at this: selling players, purchases, hospitality, wages, season tickets, employee wages. There's a lot to consider. So what is Bournemouth's permitted loss amount again? 105 million, did you say? Well, no, it's not. Like Forest's, it's £61 million. Now, that's because in the Championship, your loss permitted is 13 million, and of course, we were in that for 2 seasons. Now, we filed our profit and sustainability report with the Premier League on December the 31st last year, so that will not include the purchases of Tyler Adams for 20 million, Hamid Traore for 20 million plus, Alex Scott for 25, Kirkes for 15 million plus, Romain Favre for 12 million, and Max Aarons for 6 million or more, all of who signed in 23-24. These players, however, will be accounted for when we file the next accounts at the end of this year on December the 31st, where the FFP figure will be 83 million, because it's 2 Premier League seasons at 35 plus the 1 in the Championship at 13. Now Favre, by the way, he went to Lorient, as we know, our sister club, and the multi-club structure can also help distribute some players' costs, but it gets complicated, so let's just leave that for a bit, eh? So in terms of the players we last filed our accounts for in the Premier League, this will have included the likes of Illia Zabarnyi for 20 million plus Dango Ouattara for 20 million, Senesi for 12, Tavernier for north of 8 million, Antoine Semenyo round about 9 was he? Also the loan fee for Matthias Viña, which was about $500,000 as well. Plus the season before that as well. Can you remember even which players we signed? I can. Kiefer Moore for around 4 million. Christie, bargain, 2.5. Dembele, not really sure, but I think it was around 2. Jamal Lowe, 1.5 million, and James Hill, 1 million. And the season before that as well, which would have been Ben Pearson for $500,000. We're going some way back. The important thing to remember with any of these signings, and the ones we've got in through the door this season, is that whilst some of the transfer fees might be paid all up front, that doesn't mean they're all being accounted that way. Step forward, amortisation. Amortisation, it's a bit like your car, I suppose, where you gradually write off the initial cost of the asset. In this case, we're treating players as assets in a financial sense rather than one big outgoing, even if they do sometimes pay the whole cost up front. Under FFP rules, transfer fees have to be written off evenly over the life of the contract. So let's take Hamid Traore as an example, who we acquired for a purchase price of £20 million on a 5-year contract. £20 million over 5 years means that the player needs to be written off in the accounts at a rate of £4 million per year for every year of that contract. Plus his wages, of course, but look, we're not going to talk about wages as that just confuses things. We'll come back to wages later. In Hamid's case then, FFP for 1 year would be impacted by £4 million. Now, assuming we didn't sell him, we know what's going on in the news, but FFP would then be impacted by another £4 million the year after that, and then another £4 million the year after that. That's a 3-year window, so that's £12 million over a 3-year FFP period. Of course, it's a rolling window, so in the 4th year it would be another 4 million, and then in the final year of his contract another 4 million, at which stage he is fully amortised. He will have gone through the books for £20 million. So over a 3-year FFP period, despite buying him for £20 million, the impact on FFP for that player would just be £12 million. So it is clear that offering contracts longer than the 3-year profit and sustainability window can help significantly with FFP. Chelsea, of course, they realised this, and at one stage were offering 8-year contracts. However, Premier League clubs can no longer do that. 5 years is now the max. Now, when we had a spending splurge like we did with the players we mentioned earlier, it is worth considering the cumulative effect of having multiple players who are being amortised. Let's, for the sake of easy maths, use that same figure of £4 million a season per player. When you've got multiple players, it soon builds up. So we're effectively storing the FFP problem. For example, let's think about 5 players on 5-year deals. Zabarnyi, Adams, Scott, Traore, Ouattara, okay? All who, look, for the sake of argument, they cost us £20 million. Some a little bit more, some a little bit less, but it's there or thereabouts, right? Assuming none of them leave the club, the amortisation rate would be £4 million per year for an FFP window of 3 years. So as discussed, that's £12 million per player. Total that up for them 5 players, we're talking 60 million for those 5 players alone. Bear in mind that we've got a squad of 25, but listen, not everyone has got such high amortisation rates. For instance, Dom Solanke, we've had him for a while, right? When his contract is extended, the remaining amortisation is then divided by the number of years that we've extended his contract by. So most of our squad will be amortised, but really, it's with the new signings who affect FFP the most. If you sell that player for, say, I don't know, £70 million, please don't go, Dom, please don't go, we need you. That instantly props up your profit and loss for that year's account. Now, the fact that Bill Foley has said that our doors are locked and bolted, that's an American accent, by the way. Was it good? Okay. As far as FFP is concerned, he obviously feels like we're in an okay place. We're doing all right. If we needed to, we would sell, maybe not Dom, but we'd be actively looking to shift someone else on. As it stands, though, we're seemingly reluctant to let anyone semi-important go, and that includes players like Lloyd Kelly, who've been linked with moves to Spurs. So far, we've not even mentioned wages yet. We should though, because last season in the Premier League, it was estimated to be around, for AFC Bournemouth, £60 million. Salaries, of course, they hit the bottom line for the full whack on the profit and sustainability regulations, as does the profit and loss on player sales. So it's worth remembering that 3 seasons of wages will count towards the FFP calculation. So we've got outgoings of the amortised transfer fees, player wages, the wages of the managers, the coaches, the staff wages together with their employee benefits, company cars, etc. The salary of the directors, the salary of the CEO. That's a lot of money. So do the incoming monies balance this? Well, the answer is yeah, just about. Money received last year included the not insignificant sum of £139.2 million in money from the Premier League, plus the parachute payments for the previous seasons in the EFL, the EFL broadcast revenue, which isn't a lot, and then money's garnered through your season tickets, your match day tickets, your hospitality, advertising, merchandising, sponsorship, match day sales, all that kind of stuff. It has to be said though, compared to other clubs, for AFC Bournemouth, the gap between the incomings and the outgoings is extremely slim, slimmer than most, but we're in an okay position. I wouldn't say comfortable though, but I think not being comfortable actually is probably a good place to be, because it puts pressure on every department at the club to perform, getting the right people in, the right coaches, and obviously the right players. It puts pressure on the academy too. There's any products, of course, that we have that make the grade, well, they're just pure profit. Hence the reason why we're investing so much money into the training complex at Canford Magna. As if we get it right, it's basically a way of printing money later in life when they flourish as competent Premier League players that are craved by others. Now, being the size of club that we are at the moment, with only 11,500 people turning up every other week, sometimes we will need to sell players. That's undeniable. Foley has said this in recent interviews, as this revenue alone, without the player sales, will not cover the money that we're spending on players and the wages that we are paying to be competitive in the top flight. Last season, as we said, AFC Bournemouth earned just south of £140 million from Premier League money. In all honesty, if Gary O'Neill got us playing the last 4 games instead of being in our Speedos, we could have actually earned £10 million more. This money is absolutely critical to us. So selling players and finishing as high as possible certainly gives us a bit of wriggle room when it comes to FFP. But as ever, it's a fine line. You can sell your best players and give yourself some FFP breathing space, but are you as competitive? As ever, we're walking a tightrope. So what of the players that could be leaving the club? Where will that leave us financially? With Hamid Traore, using him as the example. If he is sold after 1 year, as could be the case on this occasion with this Napoli link, as it stands, his book value is £16 million. That's the 20 million being amortised at 4 million a season, and he's only had 1 season with us. So if he's sold for 20 million at the end of this season, minus his current book value, that gives a profit of £4 million. That money would be accounted for in the financial year that it happens. So selling players can have a big or small impact on FFP, depending on 1, how much you're selling them for, 2, how much they're into their contract, and also 3, what their salary is as well. So look, for instance, I know the transfer window is coming towards a conclusion in the next 2 weeks. Will Spurs come in for Lloyd Kelly? We don't think so. But let's say they did for, £20 million. I mean, they won't, would they? No, would they? No, I don't think they will. Minus the amortisation and wages, we'd have about £18 million for the profit and loss if we did sell Kelly. So, if we did sell him, we would be able to replace him to the tune of someone valued at, what, £30 million if they were put on a 5-year deal, right? 6 million a season. But look, we're in a strong position in the league, and I think we'd rather not sail too close to the wind with regards to FFP. But regardless of what happens to him, I'm not sure we'll be buying anyone. Maybe we will. It all depends. It's got to balance. It's not only selling players for monetary fees, of course, that helps us financially, though. It's even getting players off the books via free transfers or loans can also help massively. This week, Joe Rothwell departed AFC Bournemouth to go up the road to our friends at Southampton, and Hamid Traore, like we said, he seems to be en route to Napoli. Both loan deals, but an ideal way to get their wages paid by someone else. Of course, people will always point to increased hospitality and ticket prices as another thing to help us with FFP. Well, yeah, but in all honesty, it barely scratches the surface compared to the TV money that we receive. We just really need to make sure we finish as high as possible in that league. Through the calculations, and it's all guesstimates of financial experts, I hope he likes being called that, like AFCB Rob on Twitter, we should have a predicted between 20 and 30 million pound headroom with FFP if we survive this season in the Premier League, which we probably will, eh? So we're in a pretty good position, but we're not out of the woods. We've got to be careful. So let's keep being diligent and not risk doing a Forest, not risk doing an Everton. Cherries fans, we're in an okay place. Up the Cherries.